Hello, and welcome back. Today, we're going to pick up where we left off with a very deep discussion yesterday about truth, God, reality, and you. What else? Truth, God, reality, and you. Sounds like the title of a book or a YouTube channel in and of itself, doesn't it? What else would we be talking about here? And we're here having this conversation in the context of the text of A Course in Miracles, which describes the thought system that our inner teacher would have us learn. This is what we're doing on what we call the spiritual path, is learning. We're awakening to the truth that has always been there, despite all of our denial of it, despite all of our identification as individuals, identification with the ego, as separate beings, independent, self-sustaining survival units, which, when you really think about it, is kind of a ridiculous concept because the ego's home is not really a survival unit. How could it be when it deteriorates? I mean, it lasts for 80 or 90 years if we're lucky, and quite possibly much less than that, as we all know. So would you take this as you? It's a question we all have to ask ourselves. Would you take this frail thing that can't stand the prick of a pin as you, as the Son of God? Is this the Son of God? And, well, today you may say, of course it is. But there is a part of you that knows better, that knows that it is not the Son of God, that deep down there is more to it than just this image that we see when we look in the mirror. There's more to it than that. And deep down, you know, I know, you know, because you're watching, you're interested in spirituality. And take that another step further, you're interested in this course, in A Course in Miracles, which states that you are not a body. You are as God created you. And guess what? There is no world. Ideas that we're not taught growing up, are we? I mean, if you were, fantastic, right? But most of us were not. So here we are relearning things as adults. But where else would you be than right here, right now? So let's delve into this idea. And the title, as you can see here, is God is not a mystery. And guess what? God is not a mystery. God is, period. I mean, the book, A Course in Miracles, could simply be those two words, actually. But there are over 1,100 pages and three major components because we need to hear things as adult learners multiple times. And it could be the 1,357th time that you hear an idea that it really clicks. And you may have had this experience, so you know what I'm talking about. It really just clicks for you, and you get it, and you think, oh, yeah, that's what it's talking about. Maybe that will come today as you watch this discussion. God is. What is implicit in that statement is just as powerful as the two words themselves. God, reality, truth, love, you, are beyond words. As the Son of God, your truth, your reality is beyond words as well. It can be experienced. It is beyond all of our worldly concepts, with language being, obviously, when you think about it, a worldly concept and invention, a series of sounds that we've gotten together and assigned meaning to. All we can do with these symbols is point to truth. That is all any spiritual teacher can do. It's all I can do. It's all a renowned spiritual teacher can do, is point. You're the one that has the experience of awakening. And let's all be glad that that's so, that someone can't just snap their fingers or wave a magic wand and rescue you. No, doesn't work that way, because that would absolutely denigrate and negate the power of your mind. So we awaken what appears to be on our own. Yet, as we do it, we recognize that we've never been on our own, that in fact, separation is impossible and it never occurred. The implicit parts of the statement, God is, are very important. That means only God is. All else is illusion, including this world of separation, where everything's separate and it appears to be outside of what we've assigned to be us. This is not the Son of God. You're not a body. And deep down, you recognize this. Deep down, you know. It's why you're on the spiritual path, is because you recognize there's more to it than just what you see when you look in the mirror. And of course there is. Of course there is. Well, let's be glad of that. Otherwise, this would be our reality. And at the end of the lifespan of this 80% water communication device, that would be the end. And it's not. There is no end. There's no death. There's only life. So let's be very glad of that. Only God is. So it's not a mystery, is it? And here in the world, we think of God as some great mystery that we're incapable of grasping. Well, I'll tell you what, there's no mystery. And as long as we attempt to define and order things with the intellectual thinking mind, we won't be able to figure out who God is or what God is, because God is beyond the intellectual, rational thinking mind, and we only call it rational. We think it's a compliment, right? It's not rational at all. It's deeply delusional. I know. How about that? How about that? It sees everything as cut off and separate. We see ourselves as cut off and separate from everyone else and God. So we assign human characteristics to God: jealous, vindictive, thunderbolts from Olympus, meddling in human affairs, chastising whom he will and blessing whom he will, playing favorites and taking sides. No, no. Perfect love does not recognize sides and does not take them. This is central to the idea today. This is not a mystery. God is not a mystery. God is fact, truth that has always been. And as the Son of God, the thought of God, we've never left our source. So we are waking up to that. We will wake up to that. So here in chapter 7, section 1 of the text, the last step, Jesus tells us that he gave only love to the kingdom because that's what he believed he was. You give what you believe you are. So, what do you believe you are? An individual self-sustaining survival unit competing for scarce resources, or what we deem to be scarce resources, in violent economic competition with your neighbor over what we deem to be scarce resources? Is that you? Or are you the Son of God, one with your Creator, forever, eternally, safe, at home in God? What are you? I, I think that you know. So the question for all of us becomes, are we willing to accept this truth? Are we willing to accept reality, which we cannot change? We might think we can change it, but it is still unchanging. Just because we've covered our eyes doesn't mean the light isn't there. We may choose not to see it, but when we remove the veil, so to speak, remove the blindfold, the light is there where it's always been. So, do you accept your reality? Do you accept who you really are? And when you answer yes, unequivocally, yes to that, you will naturally extend love. Now, see if that changes your life. Do it and see how that makes a big impact. I invite you, please. We all do. Each and every one of us does. The more people that do this, the better, which makes sense, right? Let's not forget that God extended himself as us. Again, you heard that right, and you heard it right in the last video when it was repeated several times. I remember that. How many? I don't know. Not enough, apparently. God extended himself as you. Love extends itself. It does not extend hatred and separation and division, which God does not recognize. We made those, so let's set them aside. We made it, let's unmake it. And by unmake it, I mean recognize that it's nothing and set it aside. Recognize truth, accept truth just as it is. This is one of the most powerful prayers, incidentally, that you could ever utter. You could ask your inner teacher for help in allowing truth to be just as it is. Help me allow truth to be just as it is. Powerful, powerful, because that's what we're doing with all of these practices, with all of these exercises in the workbook for students, with meditations, with practice periods, with forgiveness, with our true forgiveness practice. This is what we're doing with all of these things that constitute studying and learning this course. We're setting aside our false perception, and we're allowing truth to be just as it is. Our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, is teaching and guiding us, and we're beginning to see things as they are. The goal of this course is for us to clarify our perception and see things as they are rather than how we've made them. Which, as long as we identify with the ego, the separate self-sustaining survival unit, that's how we would have them be until we decide not to. So may that decision come for you right now, today. That would be beautiful. So this last step, the Course talks about the last step in our awakening. The goal of the Course is to perceive truly, to see things as they are, which is referred to in words, again, in symbols, as the real world here in the Course. Now, this is not intended to be some fanciful Garden of Eden, New Earth type thing. No, the so-called real world is the world perceived truly. When that happens, we no longer see ourselves as separate self-sustaining survival units. We're extending only love because this is how we were created. God extended himself as you. You extend yourself as you. You extend yourself as him. 1 equals 1 with God, the author, the creator. You create as he creates quite naturally. So when we have pure perception, perception is instantly translated into knowledge, the experience of knowing God. We simply know God. So if we're looking in terms of the idea, the concept of time, this real world is pretty instantaneous, and then we're awake. So in the symbology of language, we say here in the Course that God takes the final step himself. But it doesn't actually take steps. Perfect love knows no division, so knows no individual steps. There's no ladder to God. There's no stairway to heaven. Really, it appears to us as though there are steps here in linear time. The purpose of time is for us to awaken and recognize that linear time is a complete illusion. And so is space. Separation is a complete illusion. Complete illusion. So we awaken, or if you prefer, we reawaken. God is. Truth simply is, and has never changed despite all of our mad wanderings, despite our denial of our reality, which when you identify yourself as a human being, an individual self-sustaining survival unit, that's denying your own reality. It is. And deep down, we all know this. So the question then becomes, when we have these really deep teachings, because obviously the world doesn't teach us this, our biology textbooks don't teach us this, our societies don't teach us this, they just want us to buy stuff. Consumers, spend, spend, spend. Oh yeah, drive the GDP up and up and up and up and up, because that's the measure of our progress. Yeah, it doesn't matter where in the world you live, that's the case here in the world, isn't it? A denial of reality. Yet here you are, interested in spirituality, and here you are, and perhaps for the first time, listening to these ideas which run completely opposite to the way the world perceives things. This is a reversal of thought systems, and it is a total reversal of thought systems. Awakening is our willingness to see things as the Holy Spirit sees them, as our inner teacher sees them, which requires practice in linear time, doesn't it? It requires dedication. It requires will, because it does. It requires some power of will to return to practice exercises, to return to these ideas, to forgive the Son of God. That's why one of the ideas in the workbook for students is I want the peace of God, because we're invited to want that and only that. Not saying we can't have a nice bottle of wine tonight. If you got one, open it. Might be fun. But we're invited to want only the peace of God. Your mind is very powerful. How do I know? It's shared, it's ours. There's one mind, which, by the way, has never left the mind of God. So what I invite you to do is tap into that power and allow your inner teacher to speak to you of who you really are. Pay attention to what your inner teacher says to you. And if you're hearing these ideas for the first time, yes, this is non-duality. It's what it is. This course operates on a very deep level because it is a way for us to learn and unlearn all of this. It's a way for us to awaken, to go home, so to speak. And when we do, we realize along the way, before then even, we realize that, in fact, we've never left. We've never left. All right. So to the extent that this raises some questions, please feel welcome to leave comments or questions here. They're more than welcome. Now, the spiritual path should bring up at times more questions than it answers. This is very good and very normal. This is not the way the world sees things, so we're undoing our erroneous perception. If you're just considering this course, well, what you're getting into is awakening itself. Is that what you want? This is what's coming, whether you want it in this lifetime or not. Why? How do I know? We've never left our source. The separation never occurred. Just a mistake, that's all. So, do you have the willingness to accept that for yourself? All right. So again, questions are most welcome. I'd love to have you join us. The subscription button is right here. That is the red arrow in the corner of your screen. If you haven't joined us, we'd love to have you. Go ahead and click that. And we have these broadcasts several times a week because, again, stubborn adult learners, repetition, and the fact that we're going through the text of A Course in Miracles. There are 31 chapters, and we're on chapter 7, section 1, which means lots of videos to come. All right. So thank you, as always, for your dedication and commitment to practice and for joining me here today. I will talk to you all soon.